Ramanavicharamarg. Do not mourn the dead. Number 2. News of someone's death was brought to Sri Bhagavan. He said, "Good, the dead are indeed happy. They have got rid of the troublesome overgrowth, the body. The dead man does not grieve. The survivors grieve for the man who is dead. Do men fear sleep? On the contrary, sleep is courted, and on waking up, every man says that he slept happily. One prepares the bed for sound sleep. Sleep is temporary death. Death is longer sleep. If the man dies while yet alive, he need not grieve over others' death. One's existence is evident with or without the body, as in waking, dream, and sleep. Then why should one desire continuance of the bodily shackles? Let the man find out his undying self, and die and be immortal and happy." This talk was taken from July of 1935. The following talk, under the same topic, we are going to read an excerpt of. We are going to read the 2/3 of the talk from the beginning, but we are going to not record the last 1/3, approximately last 1/3 part, because it has a slightly different subject matter. So here we go. It's from 3rd October 1935. A very devoted and simple disciple had lost his only son, a child of 3 years. The next day he arrived at the ashramam with his family. The master spoke with reference to them. Training of mind helps one to bear sorrow and bereavements with courage. But the loss of one's offspring is said to be the worst of all griefs. Grief exists only so long as one considers oneself to be of a definite form. If the form is transcended, one will know that the oneself is eternal. There is no death nor birth. That which is born is only the body. The body is the creation of the ego. But the ego is not ordinarily perceived without the body. It is always identified with the body. It is the thought which matters. Let the sensible man consider if he knew his body in deep sleep. Why does he feel it in the waking state? But although the body was not felt in sleep, did not the self exist then? How was he in deep sleep? How is he when awake? What is the difference? Ego rises up, and that is waking. Simultaneously, thoughts arise. Let him find out to whom are the thoughts arising. Wherefrom do they arise? They must spring up from the conscious self. Apprehending it, even vaguely, helps the extinction of the ego. Thereafter, the realization of the one infinite existence becomes possible. In that state, there are no individuals other than the eternal existence. Hence, there is no thought of death or wailing. Bhagavan continued, quote, "If a man considers he is born, he cannot avoid the fear of death. Let him find out if he has been born or if the self has any birth. He will discover that the self always exists, that the body which is born resolves itself into the thought, and that the emergence of thought is the root of all mischief. find wherefrom thoughts emerge. Then you will abide in the ever-present inmost self and be free from the idea of birth or the fear of death. End of quote. A disciple asked how to do it. Maharshi: the thoughts are only vasanas, predispositions accumulated in innumerable births before. Their annihilation is the aim. The state free from vasanas is the primal state, an eternal state of purity. Devotee: it is not clear yet. Maharshi: everyone is aware of eternal self. He sees so many dying, but still believes himself eternal, because it is the truth. Unwillingly, the natural truth asserts itself. The man is deluded by the intermingling of the conscious self with the insentient body. This delusion must end. Devotee asked again, how will it end? Maharshi: that which is born must end. The delusion is only concomitant with the ego. It rises up and sinks, but the reality never rises, nor does it sink. It remains eternal. End of quote 80, the excerpt read thereof. Last 1/3 part was not read because the subject matter had changed because the devotee asked a different question about dhyana, etc. Next and the last talk on this topic of do not mourn the dead is the talk from 17th June 1936. Again, we are going to read except for one paragraph of this talk, because that paragraph was only to explain to the questioner the difference between deep sleep and the waking state. So we're going to skip that, but otherwise we are going to read the talk in its entirety. Mr. Verma, Financial Secretary of the Post and Telegraphs Department, Delhi, has read Paul Brunton's Search in Secret India and The Secret Path. He lost his wife, with whom he had led a happy life for 11 or 12 years. In his grief, he seeks solace. He does not find solace in reading books, wants to tear them up. He does not intend to ask questions. He simply wants to sit here and derive what solace he can in the presence of Maharshi. Maharshi, as if in a train of thoughts, spoke now and then to the following effect. It is said, the wife is one half of the body. So her death is very painful. This pain is, however, due to one's outlook being physical. It disappears if the outlook is that of the self. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, the wife is dear because of the love of the self. If the wife and others are identified with the self, how then will pain arise? Nevertheless, such disasters shake the mind of philosophers also. The Bhagavad Gita says, the unreal hath no being, the real never ceaseth to be, the truth about both hath been perceived by the seers of the essence of things. The real is ever real, the unreal is ever unreal. Again, he is not born, nor doth he die, nor having been ceaseth he any more to be, unborn, perpetual, eternal, ancient. He is not slain when the body is slaughtered. Accordingly, there is neither birth nor death. Waking is birth, and sleep is death. Was the wife with you when you went out to the office or in your deep sleep? She was away from you. You were satisfied because of your thought that she was somewhere else, whereas now you think that she is not. The difference lies in the different thoughts. That is the cause of pain. The pain is because of the thought of the wife's non-being. All this is the mischief for the mind. The fellow, that is the mind, creates pain for himself even when there is pleasure. But pleasure and pain are mental creations. Again, why mourn the dead? They are free from bondage. Mourning is the chain forged by the mind to bind itself to the dead. What if anyone is dead? What if anyone is ruined? Be dead yourself. Be ruined yourself. In that sense, there is no pain. There is no pain after one's death. What is meant by this sort of death? Annihilation of the ego, though the body is alive. If the ego persists, the man is afraid of death. The man mourns another's death. He need not do so if he predeceases them by waking up from the ego dream, which amounts to killing the ego sense. The experience of deep sleep clearly teaches that happiness consists in being without the body. The wise also confirm it, speaking of liberation after the body is given up. Thus the sage is awaiting the casting off of the body, just as a labourer carrying a load on his head for the sake of wages bears the burden with no pleasure, carries it to the destination, and finally unburdens himself with relief and joy. So also the sage bears this body, awaiting the right and destined time to discard it. If now you are relieved of one half of the burden, that is the wife, should you not be thankful and be happy for it? Nevertheless, you cannot be. You cannot be so because of your physical outlook. Even men who ought to know better and who have known the teachings about liberation after death, etc., glorify liberation along with the body and call it some mysterious power of keeping the body eternally alive. There will be no pain if the physical outlook is given up and if the person exists as the self. Mourning is not the index of true love. Mourning is not the index of true love. It betrays love of the object, of its shape only. That is not love. True love is shown by the certainty that the object of love is in the self, and that it can never become non-existent. Maharshi cited the story of Ahalya and Indra from Yoga Vasishta in this connection. Still, it is true, pain on such occasions can only be assuaged by association with the wise. End of talk on Do Not Mourn the Dead. The talk was of 17th June 1936. Anyatha sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mama tasmat karunya bhave rakshmam ramaneshwara antaryascha bahirvidhutatimiram jyotirmayam shashvatam sthanam prapya virajate vinamatam ajnanamunmulayan pashyan vishwamapi damulasatiyo vishwasya pare paraha tasmai Sri Ramanaya loka gurave shokasya hantre namaha. Tasmai Sri Ramanaya loka gurave shokasya hantre namaha. This concludes our two-part series on Do Not Mourn the Dead. There are some other talks also, but these were the most relevant talks that this devotee felt could be used and read and absorbed and imbibed for our own clarification and learning. So thank you for listening, devotees, and we shall see you again soon with some other messages from Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Om Hari Om. Jai Arunachala. Jai Arunachala. Jai Arunachala.